So we're going to start talking about the quadrilaterals. We're going to start with just parallelograms, and then we're going to add more in as the sections go along. So we're going to use the properties that we are going to learn today and then attach them to algebra, okay, which is typically what we do in this class with all the properties of geometry. So the first one is talking about that the opposite sides of a parallelogram, I'm not going to write the word parallelogram, I'm just going to use the symbol for it, of a parallelogram are congruent. So that would be the image that would go with that. So the ones across from each other are the same. So if we had this problem, what two equations could we set up because of that? Okay, so one of them, the left and the right, y is equal to x. And the other one, 6x plus 5 equals the one across from it, which is 11y. So we're going to have to think about these kind of together in a sense because they both have an x and a y. So if y and x are the same, what could we do in this equation? So we could change this to an x if x and y are equal to each other. Okay, we learned that they're equal to each other from right here. And now we can solve this. X is going to equal 1. What's y going to be? Also 1, because they're equal to each other. Okay. Questions on that property? It's going to be true for all parallelograms. So if they're across from each other, they're equal to each other. If they're next to each other, they're not always equal. Okay, but the ones across from each other will be the same. Okay. Also with parallelograms, the opposite angles are the same. So what image would we put on this picture to show that? What's our marking? Little arcs. Okay, so the ones opposite each other will be equal, and the ones opposite in the other corners are also equal. So we can place equal signs between those two. Okay, so knowing that, what equation would we set up for this picture? Yep, these ones are opposite each other, so they have to be equal to each other. So we throw an equal sign between them because we know they have to be the same measure according to the property at the top. We'll solve for x. What are we going to do here? Okay, so we solved for x there using the property we learned at the top. Okay, another property has to do with the angles, is that consecutive angles, they're the ones that share a common side. So these angles right here would be those two angles. They share a side together. Consecutive also means next to, so the angles next to each other. These are actually consecutive angles as well because they're next to each other. Any two angles next to each other in a parallelogram considered consecutive angles. What would happen if we added two consecutive angles together? Yeah, we get 180. Okay, these are consecutive interior angles between two parallel lines, so they have to be supplementary. So they're going to equal 180. So opposite angles are equal, but consecutive angles are supplementary. They're going to use both of those properties in the homework and on the test. So let's set up the equation just to show that based on this picture up here. Let's use the ones that I circled in green right there. So that would be 2x plus 80 would equal 180. That would be the equation that you would set up for that. Because two angles next to each other in a picture are going to be supplementary. When you solve that, do you get the same answer? Yes, you do. Okay, so you can solve it either way. Ready for the next idea? All right, so we're going to put all of those angle ideas into this one problem right here. We're going to fill in all of the angle measures. Okay, we're actually able to find all of them based on what we've learned so far this year. So where else could I put a 75? What are these called? They're vertical angles. Okay, those are always equal. What else could I do? Yeah. Close, but no. Other angles we could fill in? You could, but there's an easier way to do that, to find this angle right here. How could we do that? Yes. 180 minus 75. There's a straight line right here, so they have to be supplementary. So what is that? So how big's this one? All right, so we're starting to piece this together. Where else could we write a 70? Yes.
On the opposite side of 45.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. And where could we write a 45? Why are these two angles considered equal? Yes. They are alternate interior angles. Yes, we learned that back in chapter 3. Okay, well, how could I find this angle? Yep. Zach. Okay, so there's a triangle right here, right? Angles of a triangle add up to 180. You know two of the angles. So let's do this in our head. 70 and 75 is 145. So this would be. Okay, so where else can we put a 35? Over here? Which one, the top one or the bottom one? Okay, so 35 goes there. So now we have to figure out the last two angles. We can look at the top triangle or the bottom triangle to figure it out, but another 180. So we have 45 and 105. So that's 150. So this would be 30. Okay, there's a problem just like this on your homework. Okay. Questions? All right, last slide is going to talk about the diagonals. Diagonals are the lines that cross right through the middle of the object from corner to corner. Okay, they bisect each other. What does bisect mean? Cut in half, which means it cuts it right down the middle. So those blue lines up there on that picture now have two equal segments on each side of it because they both got bisected right in the middle. Okay, so based on that, what two equations can we set up from this picture? What do we know?
4x equals 5x minus 2.
And?
5 equals 3.
And then you just solve for each of your variables, okay? That's because with the diagonals on a parallelogram, they get cut in half, so we know they have to be the same length on either side. So we got 2 for this one, and 2.5 for this one. So we really learned, let's recap this, really summarize it. Okay, we've got, let's get some pictures here. We learned this. We learned this. We learned that x plus y equals 180. And the diagonals bisect each other. So based on those 4 pictures, we should be able to answer all of the homework questions.